I began as a conservation biologist. I have a degree, graduate degree, undergraduate degree, in conservation biology and population biology. So biology is my first interest, and I dabbled with social bees and population dynamics of certain insects. So that taught me that there's a lot of mathematics there, which I not necessarily appreciate all the time. And then I decided that I would work in environmental policy more than hardcore biological science. And for me, what was important and interesting is that I kept an interest in fieldwork. I kept an interest in, as how biologists say, in organisms and ecosystems directly.
And life.
And life, yeah, exactly. Something that's happening all around us. Now, what that made me do is that I was missing environmental policy knowledge and education. So I took a master's degree in environmental policy planning and regulation, which kind of broaden my perspective in terms of what can be done in environment, what are the aspects of environmental protection, looking from a social science side, which are tremendously interesting, tremendously revealing for me at that time, which was many years ago. And then I decided that, working with environment in the field, working with life, as you said, with living organisms and living ecosystems, and also having this facet of environmental policy, how do you combine this together? I wanted to implement the policy. I wanted to see the results in the field. And that's how I started working for a couple of regional organizations in Central Europe, where we implemented projects motivated by improving the quality of life of people there, improving the quality of environment around us there, and also trying to innovate in the policy domain. Now, this all sounds beautiful, to me at least.
Well, to me too.
Because, innovating in the policy domain can mean a lot of things. But we try to, have a kind of a test policy arena where we would define certain innovative solutions, test them out, and then implement them further into the legislative ecosystem of these countries. And this gave me a perspective that you look at different countries, you look at different legal ecosystems, you look at different policy perspectives, but at the end of the day, the goal is the same. And regardless how you go towards the goal, how you achieve it, it still is the same. You want your people to live better, you want your nature to be better, and at the end of the day, which is a kind of a highlight of my career, you want to look at the future and future-proof whatever you're doing from potential risks. Now, that brought me further east, and I started working in Jordan in addressing environmental issues, water scarcity, etc. And then I liked it so much that I wanted to go even further east. And then I ended up in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, where I worked with the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, that deals with nature conservation, but also policy development. One of the highlights there, we had a lot of results there. One of the highlights there was that we worked for the federal government of the United Arab Emirates for the Office of the Future. So the Office of the Future, or the Future Generations, they asked us, review all our development projects and tell us what you think about them from a perspective of the future and nature conservation. So for me, that was exhilarating. But you sit in an office, you review a lot of documents, you talk to a bunch of very interesting people, very smart people, very responsible people in this government.
Yes.
And they sometimes say, yes, mashallah, you did a very good job, but there is another priority.
Yes.
Or, let's implement it, let's work on it, and let's see how it works out. So there was a mix of these kind of different approaches. But why I came to Saudi Arabia is because at that time, and this was almost 5 years ago, 5 years ago, the ecosystem here looked much bigger, and it was packed with opportunities. And I started working for PIF, Soudah Development Company, 5 years ago, and I'm still with this company, and I'm extremely grateful, and I consider myself lucky to be in this position.
You're one of the founders of that company.
No.
I mean, you've been there since, the very, very beginning. If it's been around for 5 or 6 years.
5 years.
5 years. You've been here for
But you know how it is.
I understand.
The company was launched in February 2021. I joined in February 2021. But there is background work that was happening 4 years before.
What I meant by one of the founders is you're one of the people who, put this organization on the specific trajectory that you're in charge of? So as a kind of a founding employee, let's say, of the organization.
Let's put it a little bit differently than a founding employee. We set the foundations for something that has been coming and has been maturing for the last 5 years. But look, what I want to say is that you can have a number of ideas, but if you don't have the buy-in from your senior management, if you don't have the blessing of your board, you can have the best ideas in the cosmos, but this is a company that has to deliver results.
Yes.
So why I'm particularly proud of what we've done is because at this huge playing field that was Saudi Arabia, that still is Saudi Arabia, and inshallah it will be for many years to come, we defined a vision. We looked at what we can really do. How can we really move the needle towards better, higher sustainability? And we had a very, very, very attentive listeners in our CEO, who is Saleh Al-Araidi, an engineer who has been working for PIF for a long time, who has been very open to these ideas and conveyed them, not only in terms of conveying, but also approving them and conveying them to our board. Because let me give you a small anecdote. We had a detailed master plan approved. And there are different zones. We have 6 development zones, and we work in all those zones, different characters, different assets, etc., etc., etc. Lovely. It's absolutely lovely. Around 3,500 to 4,000 keys for the hotels, hospitality, around 50,000 square meters of retail, secondary infrastructure, bits of primary infrastructure. Is it the biggest project in Saudi? No. But is it one of the most peculiar ones? Yes.
Absolutely.
So we put it in a nice packaging called the document DMP. Alhamdulillah, everything was approved. But during the approval process, the prime minister of this country, Sumusaidi, asked this question, and I'm quoting. How did you take care about the connectivity between ecosystems in this area? And imagine, that we're talking about the prime minister of a country. So he's running the business of this country, like any other prime minister. And he has one project where he's the head of the board, and he asks, how about ecosystem connectivity? I mean, and then you stop and say, well, if this is not the biggest opportunity of my lifetime, then nothing will be. If you have the head of the board that is running this business and is running this country, and you get this question, and you look and say, God, you couldn't given me anything better and anything bigger and anything with more responsibility. So here I am. We're trying to push for this vision further. We are trying to continue performing the best we can when it comes to environmental sustainability. Because for us, sustainability means nature conservation and ecosystem restoration, heritage conservation and activation, and also reporting on our progress.
For those people who are not familiar with environmental or ecosystem connectivity, perhaps it alludes to like the separation of ecosystems by human-made infrastructure. And so how do we make sure that the areas that are separated by infrastructure are somehow continually connected to one another and not separated, for instance, 4 ways by a highway or by a conjunction?
Yeah, precisely what you described. So ecosystem connectivity means that you have a mountain, you have an ecosystem. An ecosystem is all the plants and all the animals and everything together in one spot. And then somebody decided, because it was needed, to build a road in the middle of this natural area. And the road was needed, and the road is used, and the road will be used. And this basically means that the ecosystem that was whole once is divided in 2 bits, in 2 parts. Now, ecosystem connectivity is basically restoring the communication between these 2 parts. How Soudah will do it? Inshallah, bi'idhnillah, we will have the first green bridge in Saudi. And people say, it's not the first. Of course it's the first. You go to Qasim, you go to Hail, and then they say, there is camel underpasses under how.
Yes.
No.
It's not a green bridge. I know it's
not a green bridge. So what we are doing, and it's literally the first in the Middle East, in Saudi, of course, but in the Middle East in general, it means that you have forest on one side, then you have the road, and then you have the forest on the other side. Animals are not stupid. They don't want to cross the road. They know
They know it's risky.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the bridge that is going to be hopefully 40 meters wide, is going to have exactly the same forest on it. So when the animals cross it, they don't know what they're crossing. They
don't realize it's a bridge.
Exactly.
They just think it's the continuation of the forest.
Precisely. So that's the ecosystem connector. And what this means, somebody will say, okay, right, good. Okay, you're going to spend this kingdom's money, PIF's money, on building a bridge with some grass and with some trees on it. Why is this important? It's important because if you have populations that are separated from each other, they're isolated. One of the two, the smallest population, is bound to die, is bound to decay, and we don't want that to happen. So this is why it's so important.
Even worse, the genetic viability of that group, there might be a single escapee and then cause very egregious mutations in very otherwise healthier populations.
Don't get me started on that. Please don't get me started on that, because this podcast can last for hours.
Srdan, I mean, hearing about all of what you're doing today is amazing, but there must have been something in your childhood that kind of sparked you to want to care about all of this, right? Like, was it like maybe a pet? Was it like, did you used to live on a farm? Did you like to swim at the beach? What was that moment for you?
I don't know. To be quite honest, I don't know. I spent a lot of time with my grandfather and my grandmother in their weekend house next to one of the biggest rivers in Europe. Maybe I caught it there, maybe not. But now, when I look back, I think the most important thing for me, why we all do this, is the future-proofing of what we do and who we are and how we want to go about our business.
I mean, of course. I don't think people who are working in conservation are working to conserve nature, perhaps for the same reasons why people conserve art or they conserve architecture, for instance, right? Like, inanimmately, these ecosystems are actually labeled as ecosystem services. They provide something to human beings. And so essentially, you're just looking at a very wide lens on how to make sure that human beings are able to have a sustainable existence on planet Earth.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you look at the recent events in the capital of France, when it comes to museums, are unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
Somebody climbed in, barged into the museum, and stole some valuable items, the necklaces and the crowns and whatever. They caught them, I think, now.
Yes.
But why I'm mentioning this is that a museum is a place that is fenced.
Yes.
Theoretically, you can't access it. Right. These guys proved the system wrong.
You shouldn't be able to access it.
You shouldn't be able to access it. And then you control the visitors who have a wonderful experience, who go there, say, oh, mashallah, it's beautiful, it's great, etc., etc., etc. And then they leave, and then your system remains closed. Yes. So if you try to implement this approach to your natural ecosystems, you put a fence around it, regardless how big the fence or how big or small the area is going to die, because ecosystems are all interconnected. And the connectedness of ecosystems is the essence of their existence. There are conservationists, nature conservationists, who believe that everything should be kept as it is. Mm-hmm. Now, what these people, in my private opinion, forget or gets the views are skewed is the timeline. Because if we speak about evolutionary timelines, we're speaking about hundreds of thousands of years.
Yes.
Where climate changes, where ecosystems change, where there's natural succession of things. Now, if you try to look at an ecosystem and isolate it, physically isolate it, what you're trying to protect is a snippet of time, just like a little photograph. If somebody took a photograph of two of us today, this would be a little slice in our lives. And we will change in 10 to 15, 20, 30, regardless how many years. So this fence around a small protected area, very important, is actually sentencing the area to death in the future, regardless when this future comes or how long it will take.
Right. Because their approach is more dogmatic.
Exactly.
And not necessarily so scientific as much as it is more romantic or dogmatic. They have maybe a romantic, more emotional approach to conservation.
Exactly. I agree. But what I also think is important is to look at a dynamic relationship between nature-protected areas and humans. Mm-hmm. Because humans live in nature-protected areas. Nature-protected areas provide sustenance to humans, as you mentioned, ecosystem services, etc. Biodiversity is there. We want to keep the biodiversity, all the different plants and animals, because of the ecosystem services. But we also have to acknowledge the fact that ecosystems evolve and ecosystems change.
Absolutely.
And by no means I'm negating the loss of biodiversity is a big threat to human civilization, etc., etc. But we also have to take into account that if you look at, for example, Soudah as a project that is building hotels, that is building a destination unique in the Middle East, is going to have a very positive effect on both human life and, inshallah, we believe, really strongly believe, on nature and nature-related outcomes.
I see a very strong connection based on what you're doing in Soudah and what we're also doing in Al-Ula. They're very open-air projects. Al-Ula is considered the world's largest open-air museum. And as you said, it's all about the connectivity, the continuity of the ecosystems and the valleys to the forests, to the farms. And the mere fact is human beings do actually belong in nature, although a lot of naturalists try to reject the role that humans play in nature, which is a very natural role at the end. I mean, our ingenuity, our terraforming habits and behaviors are very natural, Srdan. In fact, us wanting to preserve and reverse some of the negative or mitigate some of the negative effects of our terraforming is also natural. Yes. What do you think about the role of the human being? And is there really no intersection between human beings living in a sustainable world? Like, is it really humans who are making life on this world particularly unsustainable? And will that be something that they do forever?
Look, if you look at the population growth trajectories, you have resources, natural resources that a population of organisms, humans, animals, doesn't matter, plants, need. So the population invades a certain area or invades a certain ecological niche.
They swarm.
So the population growth follows something that is really cool, and it's called the power law. Mm-hmm. This power law means that the population will grow at a certain rate, but that rate is slowing down. And this slowing down rate means that the population extracts more and more and more and more resources, and the resources become more and more scarce, and the population has to stop growing, not die out. We're not talking about that. We're speaking about the growth. So if you put a log scale on the number of individuals in a population and a log scale on the time axis, the bottom axis, you see that it's a power law. Stars, galaxies grow according to power law.
Of course. Yes.
Populations grow to power law. Yes. Social media grows by power law. Yes. Bitcoin grows according to a power law with the 96 R squared regression analysis. So this is something that is really, truly natural. So if you ask me, are humans acting naturally or not naturally? We can define what nature is and what naturally actually means. Yes. But for me, if we say that the universe grows according to power law, and humans grow according to power law, and human population grows according to power law, then it's natural.
100%.
For me, it's natural. Now, when it comes to distribution of resources, when it comes to allocation of resources, when it comes to resource scarcity, well, there are many things that our growth is limited by.
Yes.
But what I also want to say is that when you look at the present moment, you say, well, we're all alive, right? It's 8 billion people on the planet, but we're still alive. We haven't had a major population loss recently. So what's the problem? But the problem is future.
Yes.
What's going to happen in the future? How the power law will play out in the future. Now, mathematically speaking, we know how it will play out. The population growth has to stop at a certain period in a certain future. But because we're intelligent creatures, we are not creatures who are not intelligent. We're not plants. We're not animals. We can alter our environment, which means that we can, for example, use the renewable resources, which is a very simple example. But we can also populate other planets.
Yes.
Everybody speaks about inflation these days, right? Everybody speaks, what's going to happen with the US $38 trillion debt.
Yes.
are we going to all migrate to gold? And Elon Musk says, why gold? There's an asteroid packed with gold. Let's just bring it on.
Just bring it out to Earth. There you go.
So this is an intelligent response. It's a response of an intelligent species to resource scarcity. Ants don't do that.
Yes.
They can't. Plants don't do that. They can't. So our population growth and the power law that our populations follow can have dips and peaks that are slightly different than for other species. So yeah, it's all natural.
Srdan, this is actually a conversation we've had before whilst having coffee or dinner many months ago. And we were talking about sustainability from country to country and how the understanding or the appreciation of sustainability changes from country to country. Give us a little bit of, your previous experiences in other countries, and tell us about your experience currently in Saudi Arabia when it comes to the understanding and the approach and the prioritization of sustainability.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I
only ask the best.
Yeah, absolutely, as always, and the most difficult. But when you look at the sustainability landscape, let's talk about sustainability policy. Mm-hmm. That's easy, or easier. And let's talk only about countries, not companies.
Sure.
Look at European Union. European Union started as a cradle of innovation when it comes to policy in general, not sustainability policy only.
Sure.
And it started developing policies that were really effective, that gave very good results. But as the time went on, what happened, in my personal opinion, what happened in the European Union is that you got over-regulation. Mm-hmm. And this over-regulation, based on very good intentions, based on very good strategies, based on very good basic policy principles, like let's look at the future, let's future-proof, let's try to eliminate or mitigate all the important risks related to sustainability, such as climate change, biodiversity loss, poverty, etc. The intention was very good. The strategic objectives were excellent. The initial policy documents were excellent. But then what happened is overregulation. And then when you start with overregulation, you go into the nitty-gritties, the little details of how you implement that with vast number of countries, with vast number of people, with vast number of players, you slip into overregulation. And overregulation means that now you have a directive on sustainability reporting, for example, which is good in terms of standardization, but also you have such a diversity of players and actors and stakeholders, as they call them, in your system, that you try to adapt your principles to all of them so they could all comply, or when they not comply, they get penalized. So this is a process that I believe resulted, first of all, in stifling innovation, which, again, had another knock-on effect in reducing the competitiveness. And then you start with good intentions, and you end up with reducing competitiveness. And we're not speaking about political trends. We're speaking about regulatory realities.
Just governance.
Just policy ecosystems. Mm-hmm. And you look at that and you say, if a company, a large corporation, is going to be forced to lose competitiveness because of sustainability, we're missing the mark.
Sure.
We're not doing the right thing. So Saudi Arabia, when you look at the policy ecosystem, again, from my own private perspective, the situation is way easier. It's way easier. And how I interpret the situation today, sustainability is on the top of the agenda, not because somebody wants to put a green check in a box and say, well, yes, sustainability is important. Everybody's talking about sustainability, so why don't we do that as well? No, it's not that. It is not that. Here, sustainability is at the core of Vision 2030. And this is not a political statement.
Sure.
Because when you read Vision 2030, what you actually read is that this country wants to diversify its economy. This country wants to step away or make a turn away from being 80% or 70% oil dependent to something less, something significantly less. Because we all know that there are risks related to oil exploitation and utilization, whatever they might be, economic, environmental, etc., etc.
And no matter how long the big effects might take.
Doesn't matter. But what's admirable in this country is that billions and trillions of reals, dollars, call them whatever, are invested in a real shift. They're invested in the real shift. Yes, there is legislation. Yes, it can be improved. Yes, there is policy. But this country is spending billions of dollars to move the economy away from oil and to make it better and more sustainable. In very, very, very simple terms, this means this country wants to have its people live good, healthy, safe, secure lives in this generation and in many generations in the future. And they want to make sure that there are no risks, or that the risks that could jeopardize this vision should be reduced or mitigated. And that's it.
Cathedral thinking, as they're calling
Exactly.
it now. Yes.
Exactly.
So they're thinking about, multi-generational, whilst, for instance, certain countries are worried about, did you go over a centimeter, or are you 1 meter to this, or did you create this many tons of carbon dioxide? No, do you know what I'm saying? We're not really worrying or nitpicking as much as maybe those countries, in the West. However, the soul of the country has actually always been sustainability, even before oil.
Absolutely.
If you didn't live a sustainable life, then you're just dead, really.
No, absolutely.
And it is so appropriate that Saudi Arabia, as you described, would be such a green state. The flag is green. Yes,
absolutely.
The emblem is a palm, as a plant. The country filled with people with green hearts and green blood. And there is a very genuine love and appreciation for nature in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think for people who only see the oil aspect of Saudi Arabia, they don't venture far enough into the realm of Arabia to really understand how deeply the people here are connected to their land and to, nature itself.
Absolutely. But look, I think this is changing. Many, many people outside of Saudi Arabia, be it East, be it West, are understanding what this kingdom is doing.
Sure.
And what it has been doing, which I think is very important. But that's marketing. And that, PR and all these tools that you can use to improve the image and, make sure that you convey the real message of what you really do to the people outside of your country. But for me, what's really important is to look at what's actually being done. And I'll give you an example. Soudah Development, we're a construction company. We're developing a destination, tourism. Tourism. And people come to Soudah because of three things. Weather, because it's beautiful. You don't need an air conditioner in any time of the year, in any season. There is clouds, there is rain, there is rivers. We have freshwater fish, by the way, in Soudah. There are small river streams where these fish live. Then people come for nature because around 70% of the forests are located in the region where Soudah is, in Saudi Arabia. Yes. And people come for culture and heritage.
85% of all of Saudi Arabia's biodiversity.
Yeah, exactly.
In the southern part of Saudi.
Exactly. So this is the essence, the DNA of the business case of our company. This is why we exist. And for me, to invest into these areas is just natural. It's just normal. But also, truth be told, you go to America, you go to any developer in Europe. First of all, you don't find developers of this size. Second of all, are they planting trees? Are they restoring ecosystems? Sporadically, yes, sporadically. But here, you have such a big swing towards this idea of conserving nature, preserving it for the future generations, preserving it for your own business case as well. And Soudah is one of the most obvious examples. And I think what's also important is to be very direct about what you do. We do this because we want the people there and we want our destination, at the end of the day, the investment of funds of this country, to continue bringing benefits in the years to come. Without nature, without heritage, without the communities there, without the people, it's just not possible. So this is why we're doing it. And the reasons are very, very simple.
What about the buy-in from the community, Srdan? I mean, a destination like yours, a destination like ours at Al-Ula, we need the community's buy-in in order to make any of the conservation really noticeable, to make a real clear impact and change in the region's biodiversity, whether it be telling people to, for instance, encourage one another not to litter, not to poach wildlife, to not disturb wildlife at night whilst you are trying to, for instance, enjoy your time in the desert. How do you get the community to buy in? What's your experience in getting community buy-in and wanting to preserve and conserve wildlife and nature?
You have to lead by example. you have to lead by example, and you have to show them good results. If you fail to show them good results, if they would sit here and listen to me talk, they'd be bored, they'd leave, they'd continue to do whatever they're doing, be it good, be it bad. So how I see it is that we have to lead by example. Because, for example, Soudah Development fenced off a certain amount of land to remove the people, to remove the anthropogenic pressures from these fragile ecosystems. Basically, people were enjoying themselves, which is great, cutting down some of the juniper trees, enjoying their coffee or the food that they would make there, camping, picnicking, etc., leaving everything behind them. And this was threatening the ecosystem. So we decided we would put not a continuous fence, but, we would just fence off the people. We would prevent the people to enter. You wouldn't believe what kind of a change we're seeing after 4 or 5 years of this, as we call it, the rewilding approach to ecosystem restoration. The change is obvious. You just leave nature to do what it does best. It regenerates, it recuperates, and the changes are visible. And the community didn't like this at the beginning. Now, when they pass by, when they see how it's going, they just appreciate it. They see that we have done it because we want them to enjoy it better in the future. Another example, we have an invasive species, the baboons there. And we have implemented programs together with some local
So you're calling it invasive, but a lot of people are saying they're native to Arabia.
No, they're native, but they're invasive in a way that their populations grew uncontrollably. They grew uncontrollably, and they become invasive, meaning that they destroy parts of the ecosystems that they shouldn't be able to access because of their numbers. So what we've done is that we reduced the human pressure in terms of removing the waste, teaching people how not to litter, teaching people where to dispose their particularly food leftovers and food scraps. We installed, together with the local actors like the municipality, etc., some communities, we installed baboon-proof bins. So baboons can't access the trash anymore. And what we've noticed is that they just left the areas where they were really densely populated before. And it's another very good example of how, down on the ground, you see the results of your conservation work. And I think the community sees that and appreciates it. But without the buy-in, forget about it. Because you in Adola or us in Soudah or us together, wherever, it's a limited number of people and it's a limited amount of resources that you can dedicate to this. And if people don't really believe in that, it's not going to be really viable.
I've seen the attitudes drastically change.
Yes.
I think in the last 5-6 years.
Absolutely. Because they see the results.
Yes.
And they become proud and say, oh, yeah, this is how my grandfather lived. Yes. This is what my grandfather used to see. And now I can see it again myself, which is excellent.
What about for conservationists who are developing in their career, like myself, Srdan? What kind of advice or guidance could you give to people like me? We're excited about nature, we're excited about conservation. We see that we really want to add so much value. However, because the regulators new, the governance environment is still new, there isn't really so many handles to latch onto in order to be a part of what can we do?
I think you have to be careful of two things. One is you have to push.
Yeah.
The agenda's there. I think the agenda's there and you have to push for it. You have to grab the opportunities. You have to be persistent. But this is a kind of a general message. Sure. Whatever you do, you have to be persistent. Sure. You have to be industrious, etc.
That's even if you want to get married.
You have to be persistent, yes, absolutely. Depends on the ecosystem, though.
Absolutely.
What I want to say,
it depends on the regulatory climate.
That is also true. But then also, if you want to keep the marriage, also there's another ecosystem. But the other thing that I want to say is that what I find particularly important is that sometimes the conservationists, be it heritage, be it nature, doesn't matter, are labeled as naysayers. So whatever you want to do, somebody in your company wants to build this nice thing, and they come to you and say, oh, what do you think about the nature? And you say, well, this ecosystem is super important. No. And then he says, let's go somewhere else. And then you say, oh, no, but there's fish there. No.
There's a nuisance.
Exactly. You become a nuisance, and this is not good.
You become an invasive species yourself.
Exactly. So what I think is important is to be well placed in the matrix and understand the matrix where you operate.
Yes.
Because saying no is a good answer. No is a good answer. Saying no to things that are really wrong is also a very good answer. But what I also think is important to say, when you say no, that you have the information and the studies and the work that you've done to back up this no.
An overwhelming justification.
Exactly. But then also what you need to do is that you need to understand as a conservationist that there are trade-offs.
Yes.
There are trade-offs, and that sometimes you need to say, okay, this part of the ecosystem will be traded off for something else. And also, in these particular cases, in these instances, what I think is important is to be true to yourself and to be true to the mission of the company or the body or the organization or the institution where you work. Because if you're going to trade off a certain portion of an ecosystem for something else, then it's very important to be transparent of how you're going to offset that.
Yes.
And to say,
because that needs justification as well.
No, exactly. But then also, some people say, okay, we're going to cut a certain number of mangrove trees, and then we're going to replace them with the same number of new mangrove trees, which is excellent, which is admirable. Obviously, they're dedicating their resources to that. But we have to be realistic and to say, mangrove establishment rate is less than 20%. So you need to continue taking care of your offsetting mechanism. Then to a mangrove tree to mature and become the actual carbon sink, like the mangrove tree that you removed, takes 20 to 30 years. So you have to take that into account as well. And what I've seen is that sometimes people say, well, it's a net zero development, or it's a net zero game. I don't think it should be a net zero game.
I don't think it's possible.
No, but I think what we should look at and focus on is nature positive outcomes.
Yes.
And these nature positive outcomes, and again, I mean, I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but I want to say, and I'm proud because we're doing this. Soudah has started offsetting future problems and future emissions and future trade-offs. So we know that we will be interfering with certain small parts of the ecosystem. But we have planted 250,000 native trees to restore the ecosystems in the future. We're releasing animals to restore the ecosystems, to keep the population numbers for these species, because we know that in the future, and not only because of our development, but because of the climate change risk, for example, these populations can become fragile, and we don't want that to happen. So we are preempting these problems, and we're trying to be very transparent about it.
So Srdan, I want to know, not just me, actually, everybody wants to know. Tell us one of your kind of highlight moments in your conservation career, something that you were involved in that you're particularly proud of.
I'm proud of a lot of.
I'm sure you're proud of, I'm sure not ashamed of any. I'm just saying one that kind of like delights you on your saddest days. The day that you were like, I wish I could just quit, and then you remember, you know what? I remember that one time.
Oh, I never want to quit. No. I never want to quit. No.
Mashallah.
No. Relax, as they say here. I never want to quit. I want to continue pushing as much as we can. But I don't know. I mean, usually with these questions, you have to take my age into account.
You're still young, Srdan.
Thank you. Yes. But the thing is that these delightful, nice stories. I saved an animal, and it looked back at me, and no, I don't have it.
None of those, huh?
No. But there is a memory that I have. I went to LSE, London School of Economics, not London Stock Exchange.
That's another LSE.
And I remember there was a professor from Stanford who I talked to in a relaxed setting. And I said, right, when you look at how the population grows, and when you look how we use our resources, it's going to last, but we don't know how long. And particularly if we break the power law, which we won't, but doesn't matter. If we go, there's a blip above the power law line, what's going to happen? And he says, don't worry. Don't worry about that at all. Because, we're an intelligent species. We will find a technology to fix it. And as you can see, and this was many, many years ago, as you can see, the technology is advancing. Yeah, so we'll fix it. Don't worry. Then I thought to myself, well, he's not wrong. But then also on the other hand, I was thinking, but you cut a forest and then there's some magic technology, whatever that might be. You bring the forest back. It's not going to be the same forest. It's not going to be the same organisms. It's not going to be the same biodiversity. It's not going to be the same ecosystem services. So it was a kind of and there's scientifically speaking, there's a special word to describe this moment, and it's called cognitive elucidation. And in the English-speaking cartoons, it's like ta-da moment when
like an epiphany.
An epiphany, exactly. Yeah. So this cognitive elucidation, an epiphanic moment for me, was that there are two schools of thought. One is saying we got to change our values. We have to look at our values. We cannot consume as we consume today in perpetuity. It is impossible.
That's my school of thought, I think.
Because of the limits.
Yes.
Because of the limits. But then the other school of thought is this guy from Stanford who said, don't worry about it. Just live your life. There's going to be technology that is going to fix everything.
Yes.
And for me, that was a moment where I understood that you have to have values, but you also have to rely on certain solutions that you come up with.
Sure.
So that it is not binary. For me, the message is, also when you speak about what you asked about the future and advice, the future is not binary. Because everybody talks about AI today, right? But not many people know what it actually is and how it functions.
Yes.
But when you look at about, for example, the effects of well-developed AI on economy, one of the main effects of AI in economy in the next 5 to 10 years, so very close foreseeable future, is going to be deflationary. Because the production costs, value adding, is going to become much cheaper than it is today. And this basically means deflation. So when it comes to these two ends of the or same stick, many sustainability people say, the truth is in the middle. You have to have this and you have to have that. It's both. And I subscribe to that opinion to a certain extent. And then people say, you have to have these two things in balance. But what most people forget is that when people say balance, they think of a static model. 1 plus 2 is 3. That's balance. But for me, balance is dynamic because 1 plus 2 is 3. But what about minus 1 plus 4? It's still 3, right? Yes. It's not the same.
Yes.
And in this very simple equation, these two factors can change, still giving the same results.
Yes.
So the thing for me when it comes to this moment, this epiphanic moment, was that to understand that there are two different seemingly opposing options, but that the result is not just saying, let's just hold hands and think positively about things.
Kumbaya.
But that there is a dynamic balance, a dynamic relationship between these two approaches that we try to deploy.
So you're talking about the future. What is the future of conservation? What is the future that you envision? Or how would you want to, if you had complete control over the globe's approach to conservation, what would it be like in your eyes?
Very simple, future-proofing. Future-proofing. Do we need ecosystem services? Absolutely. What are ecosystem services? The ocean and the algae in the ocean produce oxygen, right? They absorb carbon, they produce oxygen. That's how we breathe.
Yes.
Amazon forest, people say there's this image that Amazon rainforests are important for oxygen production. They are, but the ocean produces more.
Way much more.
But they're important as the refugia, the parts of the world where biodiversity thrives still. For me, conservation is there to preserve the ecosystem services that these ecosystems that nature gives to the people. But also, I think we have to look into the future and say, whatever crisis is there, whatever happens in the future, we should be able to address it. We should be able to eliminate the risks, avoid the risks, or mitigate the risks. Some of the risks are going to be very big. Some of the risks are going to have far-reaching consequences. Some of the risks are very probable to materialize. But I think humanity should have a response to that. And a part of that response is nature conservation. As I mentioned, there are these two competing elements. Should we just change our values and eat less red meat, or consume
become
less,
vegetarian?
Vegetarian. Not for me though, but but or should we just say, oh, just live your life, be happy, and do whatever you're doing? There's going to be a technology that's going to fix your problems. I mean, what if this technology doesn't materialize? Or what if this technology doesn't materialize in time?
What if my behavior is inhibiting the realization of that technology?
Could be. So that's why I'm saying there should be a dynamic balance between these two. So I also think that nature plays a crucial role for humans, because humans are part of nature, obviously, and we are altering nature because we are an intelligent species that does that. But I think, for me, nature conservation serves the purpose of addressing future challenges, whatever these challenges might be. Will there be black swan events? Obviously. Are there the most difficult things that we as humans are facing, the unknown risks, the unknown unknowns that we cannot frame, because we tend to frame problems according to our own experience, and we tend to frame problems that are solvable. There are problems that we're not aware of.
We're not aware of even how they start.
Exactly.
A lot of the problems you don't realize we had until we look into the past.
Exactly.
After we lived through them for decades, and then we look like, oh yeah, Dust Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So
no one was calling it the Dust Bowl while it was happening.
Exactly.
People just realized it was a Dust Bowl after they already essentially solved the problem.
Yeah, precisely. So I believe that we have to be agile. We have to, as humans, I think we have to be ready for challenges. We have to be understanding that the change is present, and that we perceive that the change is rapid. But I think the people 300 years ago also thought, change is rapid and things are happening much faster than they used to happen before. So I think this is just a very, very skewed perspective of people who live today. And nature conservation plays a crucial role in that, getting us ready to address the challenges that we are going to face in the future.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Srdan. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Srdan Susik, who is the Chief Destination Sustainability Officer at Soudah Development Company here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Thank you so much, Mr. Srdan.
My pleasure, absolutely.
My pleasure as well. Hope to have you again.
Thank you very much.
The sound of Arabia.